We are live, episode 6 of the Make the Adjustment podcast. I'm extremely excited to have a former colleague, somebody who was actually in my leadership development program, about 15 or 20 years ago, who was a rising star at the time at DeWinter Technologies and is now the president of the DeWinter Technology Division based out in San Jose, California. Kathryn has been a key driver of their growth the past 7 years. Last time I talked to her a few years ago, she was a COO, building systems, teams, and processes that make their firm more scalable and resilient. Because I work so closely with her, I can tell you she's known internally as someone who gets things done. She identifies and develops her people. She leads with honesty, transparency, and a deep commitment to the company's long-term health, both at Randstad here and at DeWinter. Her colleagues would likely describe her as a very strong communicator, a problem solver, willing to take on any challenge, and a leader who raises the performance of any company. So today I want to dig into how she thinks about life and leadership and sales and recruiting, and ultimately the number one thing, building teams that can grow a business without getting burnt out. So Kathryn, you're a good friend, former colleague, and thanks for being here with us today.
Well, thank you so much, Chris. It's great to be with you, and I really, really appreciate you having me on.
Of course. And again, team, so I worked with Kathryn a long time ago. So I want to start, we'll go back in the day, and then we'll come to current day at DeWinter. So we met working at DeWinter Technologies, and that was previously Sapphire Technologies. And the network of people, Kathryn, that we worked with is very deep, and we bleed Sapphire blue, and to many degrees, the Randstad blue in those late 2008, 10, 12 years. It was so much fun working there. But our network is so deep. What do you think some of the components, I love asking former colleagues this question, what did we have during the heyday of that company? We were growing 3 and 4 times market. Like, what were the levers that you can say that we had as a team across the country? Because I was in Boston, you were in San Jose, and we had it. What is it?
I think it came down to we had a really strong culture. So and it was not just top down, but also bottom up. So I think that we had leaders who were genuine, who cared about the performance, not just of the entire company, but each individual. Even though we had grown fairly large, they kind of maintained that sentiment. And I think each individual then cared about the performance, not just on their desk, but also for the organization, which built like a really high performing culture and team.
Yeah. And I want to take the culture and team thing a bit further because I did prep you. I was going to ask you this. So at Randstad, I had, just like you, I had run regions and businesses, and then I worked my way into like an adult learning, training, corporate training role. And I was asked to analyze 71 branches across North America, Canada, US. And your branch in San Jose at the time, this is probably 10, 15 years ago, was ranked number 1 in a number of categories. Categories, things like voluntary attrition was 0. Number of people going to President's Club was a very high percentage. You were consistently beating your budget. The NPS scores were the highest in the company. And I'm 3,000 miles away in Boston, and we had met on Zoom calls and a couple conferences, but I flew all the way out there to ask you point blank in your office, Kathryn, how do you do it? So tell me, how did you do it back then, and how do you still do it today?
Yeah, first of all, I think those might be rigged results by Chris. No, I think one of the biggest things is being genuine in what you're trying to build. I had a really unique advantage in that I built the San Jose office from scratch. So I got to pick and choose what I wanted and maybe eliminate things that I had seen in other offices that I didn't want to be a part of my team, the culture, the performance. So I think in that I was very intentional in what I did every day as a leader. I hired with a very honed in perspective of what I wanted. I wanted a very specific type of person, a person who was driven by their own success, but also had a really, really, really deep desire to contribute to the greater good of placing a candidate, helping a client, helping the team grow, all of those things. So I was looking for kind of 2 things when I hired, and I think I really hired some amazing people. So I would say that team was an exceptional team that wanted to drive results, not just for their individual success, but for the entire office's success. So
it's interesting you say that. You might remember our old president then, Bob Dickey. He used to talk about something called T-shaped leadership. And you kind of just described T-shaped leadership, which is the vertical T is your responsibility, your role, your job, but the horizontal T is what's good for the company and doing the right thing. And I always remember that from Bob being a T-shaped leader. He's like, Chris, you can't just worry about your division. You have to think about how that impacts the company, other regions, and have a more holistic view. So you really articulated that great. That's cool. That's awesome. Well, I have to ask, because again, you get these results and people in the first 5 or 10 minutes have never met you seem so sweet. You're so nice and you're smiling, but how do you get the results? Like you're so strong at building relationships internally, externally, but you get this level of high performance. So how do you like balance, this relationship building with getting stuff done and moving the needle in the business without burning people out? How do you do it?
Yeah. So the first thing I want to say is you say when you first meet her, she seems so sweet.
You like that?
And then you dig a little deeper and you're like, oh, there's layers.
We all have them. We all have layers.
No, but I do think I think part of the like I think I genuinely care about people and their success. And I think that's helpful, but I do think something that really helps drive the results that I've gotten from my teams throughout my career is I tell people very directly, like, I have very high expectations of you. You're on this team because I think you can do something and I want you to achieve that. And what I think they can do, I always push like an extra step above what I probably actually think they can do to see if they can achieve that result. And I will say a lot of times when people understand what's expected of them and it's communicated clearly, they can achieve it. And you have to support them along the way, right? You have to know where those people need support and maybe where they might stumble a little bit, and you have to give them the opportunity to stumble but be there to help pick them up when they need that.
Awesome.
So
Again, I think you do a great job because I know you, Kathryn, balancing you balance the support with the driver. Because I let the joke about I just said about you're so sweet you are, but you're a driver. You get shit done. I mean, literally.
yeah.
So in your 360 review, so let's fast forward a few years to DeWinter Group. You brought me in MTA Consultancy a couple of years ago, and you said, Chris, I want to model positive behavior. I want some of my leaders to go through some 360s. It was helpful for me back at Ronstadt. I want to do it, so I'm not going to ask them to do it if I'm not willing to do it. So I have your recent 360. But I was going through it, and literally it said, we can curse here, get shit done. She gets shit done, which I thought was awesome. But in your own reflection, talk to me about, a year or two ago, we talked about 360. What about your journey the last 2 years of development? What have you been working on? What have you been focused on in your journey of just self-improvement?
Yeah. So I think something I'm always working on myself. I think that's something that has always been important to me is it's not just climbing up the ladder. It's also like figuring out, do you need to build a new ladder? Do you need, different scaffolding, that sort of stuff. So I try not just to go think about an upward trajectory, but also, if there's other areas I can improve in. So over the past 2 years, it's really been interesting. I've transitioned from, I spent 4 or 5 years in a more operational capacity in the staffing industry, which they're sales first organizations, right? So when you're in the operational component of a staffing organization, you are servicing a sales organization, and operations might not always be salespeople's strong suit. So I really loved that role. I thought it was really, really fun, but I did miss the joy of the client consultant interaction, the producers driving to really build up revenue and margin and things like that. So um, as I kind of have moved into that in the past 2 years, I've had to work on moving myself a little bit more out of an operational mindset and into a how do we get business results and how do I need to think outside of the box to do that, but also create boundaries so that my team knows, we have to hit certain revenue targets, we have to hit certain GM targets, that sort of thing. When I say GM, for those of you who are not in staffing, gross margin. So that to me is really what I've been focused on, how to balance my operational perspective with the desire to get really, really strong business results and driving those producers and that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's perfect. And you talk about tool sets and systems and processes and stuff. I have to ask you about AI. I mean, you're based in Silicon Valley, so great person to talk to about this. But I have gotten so much smarter on AI, Kathryn. So a year ago, my mentor, Joe Matarese, said to me, Chris, you have to get smarter on AI. It's coming. And I didn't do much in the last 12 months. In the last 4 weeks, I've learned more in the last 4 weeks on AI because I went to the TechServe conference and I just met some
Oh yeah.
amazing vendors. I got really smart on it. I then hired Dan Martell, who wrote Buy Back Your Time, his book. I hired
Yep.
him, who he has an AI business, so I'm getting really smart on AI. But at the TechServe conference, we talked about AI is coming. It's almost like Career Builder and Monster 20 years ago. We can fight it or we can accept it. What are some of the things that you are finding to be that have worked, that haven't worked? Just advice for people incorporating AI in their business. How's it going for you so far?
Yeah. So it's really interesting. I feel like every podcast I subscribe to is like, is there an AI bubble? I'm like, clearly there's an AI bubble, right? Like let's all be clear about that. I'm going to be on a podcast. I'm going to say it. There's an AI bubble. But we are going to ride that wave all day long being a tech staffing firm in Silicon Valley. Um, it's really interesting. So for certain people just adopt technologies quicker and it's like the willingness to poke around and try new things. um, so there's been a couple strategies I've used to kind of encourage adoption among my entire team, because AI is going to make you more efficient regardless, right? So some simple tasks that can really be templated into AI prompts and things like that, we've built, and I have checks and balances, so I know if they're using it or not. And so like simple stuff like that gets people comfortable with it, right? And so then what we've done is I'm in the midst of kind of a prospecting campaign for my Boston team, and they are actually using AI to generate some of the content for their campaign. And we're doing that a little bit more in like a fashion where the leaders are sitting side by side with them while they prompt the AI. And it's amazing how different people think to leverage it in
Yeah.
different ways, right? The way you might prompt it and things like that. So
Yeah.
for me, I'm a more analytical person. I'm always asking it, like, improve it more. That's not
Yes.
what I want. I want it more concise. People are like, I didn't think about triple prompting. And I'm like, oh yeah, you could beat that thing up. It
Yes.
doesn't have emotion. It
No.
doesn't mind you asking 4 times.
Yeah.
So that's been like a little bit of a deeper application where they have to critically think about it.
It's great.
And then for me, like things that I use it for, this is me going back to my operational side. There are like spreadsheets. I don't know how to develop the formulas. Like I only go so far in Excel. I all day long will be like, create a formula that calculates this. And my team now has
Brilliant.
access to data that they wouldn't have on a weekly basis. Normally
Right.
it would come out like monthly from our finance team.
Yeah.
Um,
So
so
cool.
I mean, okay, and then additionally, staffing specific, we have adopted a source and match tool. That
Okay.
has been really, really amazing.
Yeah.
I'll shout them out, Noon AI.
Sure.
They the reason we selected them is they're a little bit more nimble than some of the other tools, and they targeted the exact area we were looking for, which is source, ongoing messaging, replies, and then we take over. We
Yes.
weren't looking for a tool specific to screen. A lot of the tools we demoed did both source match and screen.
Yep.
My impression for the organization that I work for, DeWinter Group, we're a very high touch white glove service. We're not ready to move to AI screening.
Makes
It's
sense.
just based on the types of roles we fill and kind of who we identify as a brand. We're just not there yet, but
Yep.
um, there's some
But
amazing
Kathryn, you brought up
tools
so
out
many
there.
things. Like the strategic way you're thinking about it right there, just your brand association and how to use AI. You're incorporating it, which is great. The TechServe conference, Kathryn, and I know you couldn't make it this year, was 1/3 of staffing companies put their hands up, informal poll, that they're doing something in recruiting, and about 10% said we're doing something in sales. So I feel like
Mm-hmm.
staffing firms are leaning a little more towards recruiting than sales. But I mean, Elon Musk on Joe Rogan's podcast 2 weeks ago said in 5 years, your device at your cell phone will be called an AI device. It's not going to be a phone anymore. And it's just a matter of, do you get on board now, a little later? But it's going to be here. It's not going anywhere. And like you said, it's so incredibly useful for the right use case.
It is 100%. And some of our sales tools have, I will say this, they have AI built in. I think
Sure.
every tool has AI
Yes.
built in now, but it's pretty decent. Like, I think part of it is with AI, it's going to continue to learn and grow. And so you have to use it for it to get better.
Correct.
We all have to prompt it and make it better. And that comes from our own participation and adoption.
I
So,
literally have a slide in one of my sales training decks. It says, you make AI smarter and AI makes you smarter. And there's like a loop.
yes,
It's like,
yeah,
but your point,
it is.
but what you said about prompts, it's really, guys, this is gold stuff that she's talking about, like getting the right prompt, number one, the right role and the right prompt, but then really hammering that prompt 2 or 3 or 4 times and revising it. That's where the secret magic can come out of it, which is awesome. So it's great.
Yep. My 10-year-old can prompt AI better than I can, just for the
so
record.
crazy.
Like, there are days, like, she's like, why don't you just ask ChatGPT? And I'm like, oh, yeah, what a good idea. Like, I'm going to Google out of habit. Yeah.
So this show, a lot of times, most of the people that listen are leaders, some sales professionals, a lot of staffing people. Talk to me about your very historied career thus far and many years to go. The greatest leadership lesson that you've learned. Either you learned it the hard way, or you learned it because somebody coached and mentored you and told you and you executed it well. Like, what is your silver bullet advice, your greatest life lesson in leadership that you just
Yep.
would want to share
I
with
think
people?
I think you know this answer. I spoke about it at a conference at
You
it
did.
was
You're
a
a keynote.
management conference.
That's
It
right.
still sticks out as like my biggest leadership lesson, which is this is an edge us women have. I went on a leave of absence because I was having my first child, and I realized you can't hover over every employee at all times. Like, I love to have a decent amount of control. Let me tell you, my team will all laugh if they hear this, but you need to give people enough space to learn. And so, kind of in a classic learning model, you typically model the behavior, and then you model it with training wheels of some sort, and then you let the learner do it, but ask questions so that they know you're available. Typically, you're right next to them doing something else. I embraced that so heavily before I went out on leave to make sure, like, everyone knew in this situation, here's what you do, but I wanted to make sure they had several learning opportunities kind of with some training wheels, and then they could ask questions. And then I knew walking away from my desk for 3 months that they would be totally fine. So it just made me take a step back and trust the producer and what I had trained them to do, and they actually grew while I was out on leave. So it was an amazing time. I was very proud of that team for doing that. And then I went and did it again, and they produced the same results. So very proud of that team. But
It's a great transformation on your part in calling it out, because as a leadership coach, I find this to be true, Kathryn. A lot of younger mid-tenured leaders believe they have to do the work, they have to micro the work or whatever it is. And to your point, you do have to give people some space and you have to take some calculated risk, right? You're not going to put your people in a position to fail in a big way, but you want to put them in a position to have small failures so they can learn and grow, because as a leader, you can't grow unless they grow. And if you're over their shoulder, quote unquote, a manager over their shoulder all day, you're going to be over their shoulder the rest of your career unless you teach them to think on their own when you're not around.
100%. Critical thinkers are the best employees. That is something I have heavily learned in like the past 2 years. I think it's become abundantly clear to me that people who can kind of act independently and then say, like, is this the right way to do this, versus coming and being like, okay, what would you do? Right? It's like someone who's proposing the solution.
Yeah, I was going to ask, like, how do you interview for that? How do you select for that? Do you have like a question, or how do you find that?
It is, I think it is a hard thing to uncover in an interview. I think it comes down to asking questions on, like, what's the biggest problem you're dealing with today at work? Like, what do you think you're going to do? and based on that response, you can usually tell how much they've thought about how they're going to
Yeah.
solve that problem.
Yeah.
Also, just the problem that they present, I think, is somewhat telling. You
Absolutely.
know, the based on the type of problem that they're dealing with, if it's more tactical or strategic,
Yes.
what's keeping them up at night or
That's
what's
awesome.
challenging them at work. So
Yeah. And I want to stay on that tone of interviewing because you talked about building great teams. What do you look for when you interview talent? And it doesn't be any role. It can be an IT person for your company. It could be a recruiter. It could be a marketing person. What are the general competencies, things you look for when you hire talent?
yeah. So I think when you're any role that you're hiring, I think a big part of it is are they going to be able to contribute to the team in a way that helps the team grow as well as helps the potential hire grow, right? So when I look at it, for hiring, like let's say a data analyst, right? For our team, they're going to come in, help us with dashboards and things like that. And I ask, like, is this person going to elevate the team? Like, great, they can do the data analyst work, but are they going to help elevate the leader that they're reporting to or the person they're working side by side with? Like, are they going to be willing to show that person, like, oh, here's how I did this formula to make it better, the data better visualize to the leaders, right? So a lot of times that is what I'm looking for. And the same thing when I hire like a salesperson or a recruiter, I'm looking for someone that's going to elevate the team, not
Right.
just
That's
be
great.
another body
So again,
type of
because I'm
thing.
prepared for our podcast today, my notes in your 360, this is what it said. One of Kathryn's philosophies is this is a team sport, not a solo act.
Yep.
I remember that
Yes.
feedback, but
Yeah.
that plays out to be true. I love when I ask you an organic question and it leads right to a talking point I had in my notes. So it's amazing. Um,
You're welcome.
so let's have some fun. You obviously know that I've adopted the tagline "Make the adjustment." Any fun taglines, phrases you've been told you use that are like a staple? I'm just curious. I always like to ask this question.
Ooh, that's a good question.
Other than you drink one Diet Coke per day and I have a Coke Zero per day.
I mean, at least minimum.
Yeah.
I do think, I mean, actually my other side, work hard and be nice to people. Like, we need to put the people first. Like, we need to think about how we're impacting the relationship, and that is true throughout the DeWinter organization. We've always been believers in great relationships, and so it's
Tell
one
me
of our
more about
core
the business, what you
values.
can. I know, I don't want no proprietary secrets, but just tell me about the business, how you've been doing, what you're focused on.
Yeah. So DeWinter has two divisions. We have a finance and accounting division and a technology division. It accounts basically for 50-50. We started as finance and accounting 25 years ago, perm focus. Then they moved into consulting. Now we're much heavier on the consulting, and still do an amazing perm and retained practice. So, like in terms of the technology team, which is what I manage, so the 50% of business that kind of focuses on filling technology positions, we have been heavily focused on, shockingly, AI.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've been really focused on companies that not just kind of create these large language models. We do have some of those, but then we also, those that support them, the hardware companies, those that are doing some data center work. So that's
Yeah.
been a big focus. And then a really interesting thing that I've been loving, I think it's just because it's fun, is the EV space or the autonomous vehicle space. So
Yes.
either one has been heavy hitting. I think it's just because it's you see where it's going, like the
Right.
autonomous vehicle. I'm like, we're gonna have flying cars. This is
Yeah.
gonna be so
The
fun.
Jetsons. It's
So
like the
that's kind of
Jetsons.
that. Yeah, that's kind of just passion. So those are some of the verticals we've been working with more heavily. And then as a business, we're always focused on kind of our core, which is building relationships with our clients, consultants, and then internally, right? It's a big part of it is having a great team. So.
Yeah.
Um,
And I want to talk, the last thing on AI for now is you talk about the jobs being created because when I go to these conferences or I talk to customers, there's some trepidation around AI is going to displace X amount of people out of jobs. But the counter argument is, but it's going to create that many or maybe twice as many jobs. So
Yeah.
what do you think some of those jobs are that are being created because of AI?
Yeah. So, well, I think there is clearly just the AI companies, right, where you have to build the large language models, the more complex kind of engineering types of roles. But I think even if you look at like maybe when you're talking about people getting, we'll say displaced from their job because AI is maybe like doing the data analysis itself or doing the financial analysis itself, there has to be someone to teach the model that, right? So the prompt engineering, I think that'll be big. I recently I went to the LinkedIn conference. I was trying to think where it was, and I forget, but I forget what organization this person was from. It was a Bay Area based company, but huge push to use AI within their organization. It was a large company, and they had upskilling programs, which I thought was so awesome. So if your job, let's say it was data entry, was getting replaced, right? Like they're using an RPA tool that then had some decision making components, so like an agentic AI, they were then taking those people and figuring out where else in the organization can you be of value, and then how do we teach you those skills. And so I thought that was really cool that they were actually investing back in the employees and not going with the reduction in force model. I
Amazing.
think there are places though where it is like Amazon's use case of like they now have robots picking your products and putting them in. Like that's a tough one. It's like, okay, what are you going to do there? And I think part of it is those people that were once doing the inventory and things like that, there will be something else. I mean, I think the data centers and things like that, they need humans to make sure, like to go through and check and make sure things are cool enough and the temperature's right. So I
Yeah.
think there are opportunities. The problem there is geography. Like the Amazon center is one place and the data center is another place. But
Right. Right. That's
yeah.
wild. No, it's like I said, it's coming. And listen to the Elon Musk podcast the other day with Joe Rogan. It really starts to open your eyes when you think about visionaries. And this is, we talk about Bill Gates or Musk or any of these
Yeah.
visionaries, Steve Jobs. They saw things that we just couldn't see at the time. And so, in the journey of self discovery and learning, I want to ask you in a second, like books you're reading, how you continue to develop yourself. But I just picked up a new one on Audible. It's 2034, How AI Transformed Life.
Ooh. Who's it
And
by?
it's, I can't, Kumar, maybe? I can't remember the author.
Okay. I'll have
But
to look.
it's you got to look it up. I'll send it to you. But, and I'll
Yeah.
tag it in the show notes. But it says things like in 2028, here's what's going to happen. In 2030, here's what's going to happen. In 2032, and it just opens your eyes like, oh, this is going to happen one way or another. So you can start to adopt and figure it out, or you can just wait. And there's that point of no return, inflection point, right? It's okay to wait for a while, but at some point you do miss the train,
Yeah.
and
You
other
gotta eat.
companies
Yeah.
beat you. Yeah, they beat you to it.
Yeah.
That's really
You do. You have to adopt it at
so.
some point.
So what are you doing for self improvement? Whether it's your own mental well being, whether it's business
Yeah.
related, what do you do to continuously improve?
I feel like this is great because I actually have an answer today.
Sure.
Yeah, I started, I'm not going to pronounce her name right. Solika Jalad. I butchered that. I'm
Show notes.
sorry,
We'll put it in the
world.
show notes. We'll find it.
She is an author. She wrote Between Two Kingdoms, and I had read it a while back. It's great. She has like a rare form of leukemia. She's an artist. Great, well written book. And then I recently just picked up her book about journaling, which is something I've always been like, yeah, I should probably do that. Like it would be good. I'm a pretty high driving person. Like I should probably write some things down, let them off my chest, and move on. And so yesterday I committed with my two sisters. I was like, I'm going to journal 20 minutes a day. What are you guys doing? So we have a little accountability system. We're doing 20 minutes of self improvement every day.
Excellent.
And I think that's just a good thing. some of the frameworks I'm using, because I think part of it too is it's really hard for, I like to have frameworks. Like I don't just function in like oh, I'm just going to wake up and write. So I'm trying to do something where I focus on what I'm grateful for, what I contributed that day, and then things that are worrying me, right? Like just doesn't need to be like long and stressful, but just like quick bullets on that stuff.
Yeah.
So those are my 3 frameworks. And then I've kind of jotted down things that I'm like interested in exploring in my mind, like how to not use my phone as often, how to be a more engaged parent, how to be a more engaged manager, things like that. So
Fantastic.
we'll see. I'll let you guys know how it goes.
That's fantastic. Well, you used the word framework a couple of times, and I want to stand on that for a second because, again, I think about you in the work. I've seen you in the workplace. You execute so well, but I think it's because of the framework, and that's why you execute, because you have a framework and you have a strategy and you put thought into it. And then once you do it, you just go. And you probably remember this from Ronstadt too, Kath. Remember the 5% strategy, 95% execution? Remember that?
Yes.
So
totally.
I remember it was like on a mural in Diemen, Amsterdam, when I went over there to visit. And, you and I had a great run at Ronstadt and we learned a lot. And, it's what we did at Ronstadt is helping you at DeWinter. It's helped me in my own business, the way they developed us and our skills. But I still say that to entrepreneurs, leaders I talk to. A lot of them chase the shiny ball every month. I'm like, stop. Have 2 or 3 goals for the quarter. Those are your rocks, execute. So, I'm an EOS implementer, so I'll sit people in a room for a day. That's the 5% strategy. The rest of the quarter is execution. You just have to have a framework and execute and execute. And again, our old friend Bob Dickey, again, it just doesn't stop, right? It's the cadence that's important.
Just do it. Do it again.
Exactly. Do it again. And then do it in journaling. Do it again. Keep going.
Yep.
Is there anything, I want to be sensitive to time. Is there anything we haven't talked about that you would like to promote, you would like to highlight, a story you would tell, anything that I missed today that we should have discussed?
Okay, 2 things. On the framework conversation, that's such a good reminder. It's actually something I implemented like a month and a half ago. I was feeling like my team was getting pulled in too many directions. So now this is an AI use case. They get an email every Monday on 2 metrics that we're tracking for 13 weeks. Just like, here's what we're tracking. And so when you put up a deal, you're focused on 2 things, like, does it meet this and does it meet this? And it also creates a shared goal. So it's like, I can help contribute to that as a team member. I can raise that number. And so it doesn't feel so individualistic. So that's a great comment. And I do think I think the team has kind of discussed like, okay, what's our next 13 weeks? Like, what are we going to do then? So I love that. Tell me, Chris, what's something you've been committed to in terms of personal improvement recently?
So Dan Martell, I hired him as a coach, and he has something called the Daily 5. And it's actually on my phone. I'm not multitasking. So review your goals. So you ready for this? It's review your goals 3 times a day. Break a sweat 45 minutes a day.
Yeah.
Feed your mind 10 minutes a day. So when you do journaling, that's 20 minutes for you, but 10 minutes a day. Share your work on social media at least 3 times a day. And send a minimum of 5 outbounds per day. And now you would say 5, like Kathryn, we grew up in a world in staffing where reps are making 50, 60, right?
70?
But the 5 outbounds are specific targeted outbounds, not just banging cold calls and sending emails. So it's a very specific. So like an outbound for me would be, and for people watching and listening, if you use LinkedIn, I learned a technique a few months ago where there's a little paper clip, you can attach a video. So one of my outbounds is I'll send videos to customers of, hey, Tracy, I was just thinking about you the other day. So instead of sending an email or a voicemail, I send a LinkedIn video message. So I get creative. And that stuff is working. So interestingly, the 5 outbounds per day on top of my regular sales efforts, existing client of mine, where I'm doing about $12,000 a year in consulting, just extended me next year for $50,000.
Wow.
Because of the 5 outbounds per day.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're engaged with them.
It was a direct correlation to that. So yeah, that's. I've been doing this for like 3 or 4 weeks. Honestly, you say journaling, reviewing my goals. What it does is it helps me avoid chasing the next squirrel.
Yep.
Because there's the next new idea. I'm like, oh, I should try that. I'm like, nope. I would advise you not to do it. I have to advise myself not to do it.
Yeah.
So no, thanks for asking. That's a great. You flipped the script on me, but that's what I've been working on. Yeah. But listen, Kathryn, again, for people that know, I talked about this before. Again, you're leading an amazing organization, DeWinter. I met some of the people there. You guys are doing great work. But obviously our relationship, I have to keep highlighting the fact that we had so much fun working together. Again, any last lessons from our time together there, here, last bits of advice for our audience on how to create great
Yeah.
workplace culture and get things done?
I think something that you and I were always aligned on was like, don't be afraid to fix the plane while you're flying it. Like that was something you and I always said. Like, don't be afraid. You got to
Yeah,
fix it. It's moving. It's fine. You can
it's
fix
true.
it. You're not going to
Fix
crash
the
it.
plane in the air.
So,
I remember that. Yeah.
yep,
Fix the plane in the
yep.
air. It's great
So,
leadership advice. You don't always have time to land the plane.
no,
So just
no.
keep in the air. Everybody will be okay. It might dip a little bit,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
you'll sail on. That's awesome. That's cool. Kathryn, where can people find you if they want to find you on LinkedIn, social, et cetera? Where can they find you?
Have no social media other than LinkedIn.
Okay,
This
they'll
came
find you on
up at
LinkedIn.
a conference, so find me on LinkedIn. That's where I am. And I'm always happy to chat. Like, feel free to message
Sweet.
me on LinkedIn, and we can set up a time.
Well, if anyone is thinking about a career in accounting, finance, staffing, or IT staffing, DeWinter Group, amazing company with an amazing leader. Highly recommend. If you want a referral, if you are in my first in LinkedIn, if you're a first connection, I will be happy to refer you to Kathryn, or feel free to reach out to her directly. But Kathryn Krueger, thank you so much for your time today. This is amazing. And I always like to close the show around the Make the Adjustment tagline. If something's not going on in your life, it's up to you to make the adjustment. So, Kathryn, you've made so many adjustments, had so much success. I'm so happy for you. And again, proud to call you a friend and former colleague. It's a lot of fun to have you here today.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. It's always great speaking with you. It's always great reconnecting.
Thanks, buddy. I will see you out on the trail, hopefully in 2026. Thanks, Kathryn.